Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everyone. So this is Facilitator training session number 2. So here we're going to go kind of beyond the technique itself and start to go into the big picture of what's unfolding in these dyads and in the retreat setting. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the stages that the participants go through and start to understand the facilitator's role at each stage. So at the beginning, it's just really about making sure people are doing the technique, but your role as a facilitator will change as we start to go deeper through the process, as people start to go deeper through the retreat. So that's what I'm going to get into today, and also just sharing some of the things that we've discovered along the way about facilitating, little tricks, things. Everyone will make the facilitating role their own. So I'm going to at some point invite Lila to share some of her own insights as well. The pointing to people's true nature, it just sort of comes alive for some people. So for Lila, that has come alive. Also, Bill is here, so if he has anything to add, I know that has come alive for Bill as well, that pointing. So if you after I go through these stages, I'd love to hear just different perspectives. And I think the more we open up to seeing how different people facilitate, the more we get a sense of the possibilities. There's some amazing facilitators out there in the world. There's some of you may have had interactions with Murray Kennedy or Lawrence Noyes. These are amazing facilitators that I would recommend just checking out at some point as well, just to get a different perspective and a different feel. And one thing I want to mention is there will be 2 more sessions like this for facilitator training. The next one, I'm not sure when they're going to be, but it'll be after the 7-day retreat. But I'd like to do one specifically for those who are interested in hosting their own retreat. Just the logistics of setting up your own retreat, some of the challenges, and also some questions have come up for people reading the Charles Berner instruction manual. We do things a little bit differently here, so some questions came up. In that tradition, sometimes they use a bell or a gong to switch roles. The facilitator and inquirer will switch back every 5 minutes. They use this little gong. That's something that was in that manual. So if you read that, you may be going, why don't I use that? And there's things like that. There's little differences, and not that there's any right or wrong way to do it, but we can talk about all those different logistics and the possible structures for the retreat itself. So we can get into that, and I'll share just any resources and materials I've put together as well if you are interested in doing your own retreat. And then there will be a 4th session, which will be specifically for the app that we're creating. So the I Am app is going to be its own little world as well. And for those who want to get involved with that, there'll be certain logistics and ways of working with that, and scheduling your time as a facilitator, even scheduling your own retreats within that app. So we'll get into all that. It's still being built. It's still in the works. So I'm not sure, when that's going to come into being, but that'll be sort of its own thing. So hopefully everyone got a chance to review the notes from last time. At the end, before we go to break, I'll review some of those things just so that they're fresh. The most important thing, of course, is to just make sure people are doing the technique, at these short sessions. Today I'm going to be getting into what happens in the big retreats as people move through the awakening process. But really today we'll be mostly still focused on the retreats or the technique when we're in the dyads. So there will be some opportunity for pointing, but it doesn't come up as much in these short sections. So I guess for some people there's just this natural impulse that arises when we're in this facilitator role, when we're playing the facilitator, and it just comes online for some people, and not for everyone. Not everyone here will be, will feel that impulse to do the pointing. So in any case, I'm just going to talk about these stages that people move through and how we can best point people. But really, it's what I really want to stress that what I'm saying today is not really something to learn or try to replicate, because this is just my own way or my own understanding, but your own unique capacity. It's mysterious. Something arises deep within our being, and there's this natural impulse to help another being to awaken, and yet the truth is, when we're in samadhi or when we're truly awake, there is no one to awaken. And this is the paradox. We're not awakening people. At a certain point on the path, it's like consciousness will find ways to wake up. So there's no people that awaken, or it's not like we are awakening other people. This is the delusion we can fall into as facilitators. There's only the one consciousness that awakens from all of these characters. So it doesn't really matter who awakens. And this is the mystery of this whole process. It's like Suzuki Roshi said, there are no enlightened people, there are only enlightened actions. So in this facilitator role, we're just allowing, action to come through from this mysterious source. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the stages that participants go through. At the beginning of the retreat, it doesn't really matter how you explain it or how many times you explain it, or how you try to clarify it. There are certain mistakes that are always made. They're not really mistakes, but people are used to being in the mind and acting from the mind. So at the beginning, the mind is trying to figure out how this works and what this dyad process is. And often people will mistake the imperative for a question. So instead of conveying, through the direct experience of who they are, they're looking for an answer. So, the imperative, tell me who you are, is a command. It's a command to authentically or directly be who you are and convey that. So, the mind is in the conditioned mind is all about questions and answers. So the imperative is not a question, obviously. It's something much deeper. So this is something at the beginning, the mind, for most people, unless they've done some form of self-inquiry or they're already quite awake, the very first step is a sort of giving answers from the conditioned mind. And sometimes I call this the parroting stage, parroting like a parrot. So you're repeating what you've learned. So people they'll hear the imperative, tell me who you are, and they might repeat what they've read in a book or what a great teacher might have told them. They might be repeating their beliefs about their true nature. So whatever has been figured out with the mind, a memory, a concept or an idea. And this is just a natural stage that people go through. And our job is not to get people out of this stage prematurely. We want to allow this to unfold. And it's important to allow it to unfold. Usually people will, eventually on their own experience the futility of trying to answer with the mind, with memory. So we just allow that to unfold. And there's that saying, the fool who persists in their folly will eventually become wise. So we just let them make this mistake until, the energy will build, and this sense that, eventually, they'll realize the answer is not on that level. So we don't want to nudge them too soon. We just let them experience that futility, essentially. And then, so the second stage, and these stages are not absolute. To me, this is just one lens or one way to look at the unfolding of this process. But this comes from Charles Berner and some of the other facilitators. I've just sort of put together these stages through my own understanding, but people don't necessarily go through them all, or they may not be linear in this order as well. So anything is possible. So I just want to make that clear. This isn't like some definitive map that I'm trying to put out there. So the second thing that I see typically unfolds is, when people start to let go of their beliefs and concepts and what they've learned, they start to use their logical or rational faculties. So there's a sort of intellectualizing that can start to happen. So they're using the analytical mind to arrive at answers, and they're sometimes you'll see people trying to reason it out. You can see the wheels turning in the mind, and still so the mind is still looking for an answer at this level, but rather than referring to other teachers, it's like they're looking to their own mind and their own rational faculty. But still at this stage, often the imperative is still mistaken for a question. So there's still this belief or this sense that there's some answer, and the mind is still looking for that answer. And so this process will continue to go. Again, there's a guaranteed failure that's going to happen. The mind will always fail. So there's a frustration, a sense of futility, this confusion starts to arise, and it's exhausting as well, as you all know in this process. When the mind is really looking for an answer, it gets tired, and so all of this phenomena will start to create a sort of pressure, and we just want to allow this pressure to build. So again, we don't want to start prompting people too soon, because we might interrupt this process if we start saying things like who's aware of the mind, or who's aware of that. We can interrupt, or we can cause people to bypass this building up of energy, and this sense that the answers don't lie in the mind. So we really just are letting it happen, and at a certain point, then certain things start to appear in the participants, and you'll start to notice that after an extended period of working with the technique, new phenomena might start to appear. And this is very similar to what happens in meditation. After an extended period of concentration and equanimity, there's a sort of heightening of the senses. You could say that the third eye starts to open sometimes when we're single-pointedly present. So people might start reporting different phenomena. They might see their partner's face changing, seeing visions or auras, and reporting this sort of heightened or an altering of the senses in some way. Sometimes at this point there can be an experience of inner energy. Not everyone is attuned to like a free flow of inner energy. For some reason, some people just don't tune into it or feel it. But at this point, energetic happenings can start to be reported. And sometimes there can be emotions and feelings that start to bubble up at this point as well. And this is part of the clearing process. So there can be, cathartic releases at this point. Usually, there's a later stage, which I'm going to talk about, where there's these really big clearings, or we come face to face with like a primordial fear that starts to arise. So this is, I would say that stage 3 is more just sort of the general mind clearing, as we're working with the process, observing the phenomena, just reporting it, the layers start to get really cleared, and we start to see what's in play at the deeper levels of the mind. So as we continue that process, then we will come to stage 4, which is something that most people will experience in the dyads. And stage 4 is sometimes called the void or the silent witness stage, and or sometimes it's called no man's land. And this is the place where there's really no thoughts or phenomena arising, or maybe just a little bit. And it seems like there's no progress being made in this stage. So usually at this point, the participant has really understood the technique. They've been working with it. The clearing process has happened, and they might not be really searching for themselves with the mind anymore. So they start to realize that there's no answer on the level of the conditioned mind, or that an answer is not it. An answer for the mind is not it. There's nothing that the mind can find or manufacture that will be satisfying. And this is where, at the retreats, I sometimes talk about the figure ground reversal. So the figure ground reversal is, it's this image here. So this image, when you're looking at the vase in the center, you flip and then you see the two faces. So the figure ground reversal in the dyads is when most people are focused on the mind and its content and answers and phenomena, and then they come to this stage where they're recognizing the witness. They're recognizing that there's this awareness that is present. But this is still dualistic. And they can flip back and forth from one to the other. So in this stage, they, like Ken Wilber always said, that the witness is the last holdout of the mind. So at this stage, they're not focused on the mind and senses, the content. So they're, hanging out as this witness. There's a recognition of consciousness. There's a recognition of silence and stillness. And a lot of insights can really come up at this point. One comes to understand, really the process of this seeking mind, and realizing that seeking mind is not it. And when we let go of that seeking, there's this sort of tranquility that arises. There's a peacefulness that arises. And in some meditation traditions, this is actually the end goal of meditation, is to come to this tranquility or peacefulness. But and in other traditions, like in Buddhism, they have shamatha and vipassana. So this would be shamatha. This would be tranquility meditation. So this is an important part of the process. This is an important stage to go through. And it's at this stage we can really start to introduce or start to point people towards the use of words like I, me, and mine. It's in this witnessing space that we can really start to point people to the truth of who they are. So quite often when something is coming up, some phenomena is coming up, we can throw out a pointer, like, who is aware of that? Who is aware of that thought? Who is aware of the mind? Or who is aware of both the witness and the witnessed? So we can start to bring people's attention to this figure ground reversal, really making it conscious, seeing, subject and object witness and the witnessed, and pointing people to the one awareness that is aware of both. So at this stage, this is where you may start to feel, that someone is really ripe for that pointing. This is where it's, the role of the facilitator really changes at this point. And this is usually well into a retreat. This is usually after, the first day, after many hours of inquiry. It usually takes, maybe 20 hours of single-pointed inquiry for most people to come to this stage. But again, it's different. And the thing, when we are interacting with participants, we don't know, what form of sadhana they've been involved in when they're coming to this retreat as well. So, we have had people show up, and it's like they're really ripe for these pointers, and it can, it's rare, but it does happen sooner in the retreats as well. So there are no absolutes here. So so this fourth stage, hanging out in this sort of quiet, peaceful no man's land, it's like people will start to be constantly bumping up against the witness. They'll recognize that the mind and all this phenomena is not who they are. They're not identified with it, yet there's still this sense of a witness, and there's still this subject-object split happening. So hanging out in this space, there's a deepening, and very subtle aspects can start to come to the surface. There's usually, it's very peaceful in this place, but yet there's still this sense that there's got to be something more. People feel intuitively that, this can't be it fully. This isn't the true awakening. There's something still alive, and so there are these subtle aspects of the mind, subtle expectations that are still in play, or a subtle longing may still be there, and these are the things that start to percolate and come up to the surface. These subtle operations of the mind, where there's still a hope or a wanting of something, but the mind obviously can't know what that is. But there's something deep within our being that still wants the truth of who we are, and so at this stage, the truth has still not yet been revealed. People might say, I am awareness, or I am the witness, or I am consciousness. But if you probe deeper, usually whatever word they're using, usually it's referring to that witness. There's still this subject-object split. So the language is tricky. Sometimes someone can say, I'm aware, or I'm witnessing, or I am consciousness. And for one person, it's conceptual, it's just the mind saying it. And for another person, they may be having a direct experience that they are consciousness. So the words aren't it. The words never truly reveal the truth. As a facilitator, we start to see the difference between when it's just the mind saying, I am awareness, or I am consciousness, and when it is awareness itself speaking. When someone is having that direct experience. It's very different. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we come to that part here shortly. So the next stage is then after this sort of peaceful witnessing, the deeper insight stage can start to open up. And here, this is like moving from, in meditation world, from shamatha to vipassana. So this is where, the deep samskaras start to come to the surface. The deep insights about our being start to come to the surface. So we can start to get a sense of the, this inherent unsatisfactoriness of the mind, this pathological wanting of something to be other than what it is. And there may be insights that, maybe this witness that we refer to, maybe, we get a sense that this is just another concept. It's just another part of the mind. Participants will get a sense of the impermanence of all this phenomena that's arising and passing away. So this is where one will start to move from, this mind knowing to actual direct experiences, and one might start to get glimpses of the truth. And as part of this process, this is where any repressed emotions, traumas, imprints may start to come to the surface. So at this point, participants might sometimes become identified with the phenomena that's coming up. And we just allow this to happen as a facilitator. So it's not a problem to fix. This is a natural part of the process. We allow, these, someone might have a full-blown, experience coming up for them, emotions and traumas. We don't try and get them out of it. We allow them to have a complete experience. So their sense of I might fully flip into the character. And that's fine. And it's at this point where, real insight can come. So, it can happen very quickly. Somebody can be fully identified with their character, and all of that unconscious material becomes conscious. And then, because of the momentum of the inquiry, they may start to get glimpses or get a sense that they're not this character. So again, the pointing at this stage can be helpful, and it can also be a hindrance as well. So, when someone is really fully identified, if they're going through an old trauma or something like that, we typically just allow that process to unfold. And we can usually sense, when there is a capacity to observe the phenomena, and when it's, when one is fully just sort of absorbed into it. So if somebody is moving through a trauma experience, it's not the time to say who is aware of this experience, unless we really feel that there is an awareness there is a capacity to observe. So this is where it's very tricky. It's very tricky. This is where your own sort of intuition will really kick in. And, I usually just err on the side of just letting things unfold. And, this sense of, being the character. Sometimes, it's like the whole process is about awakening from that character, but sometimes, from what I've observed, it's like we have to experience that character fully, that sense of I, identified with that character in order to feel everything that has been repressed. So it's a little paradoxical, we have to allow for everything to be as it is, to come up. And then, when it seems like there's an opening, that's when we can start to really, use the pointers. Like, we can start to question the language that's being used. So if somebody is using language like I or me or mine, so they're reliving some experience, and they use the word I or me, then, that might be the perfect time to ask a question. Who does that I refer to? When you use the word I, who does that refer to? So at this stage, fear can come up for people. Quite often the ego will feel confused or feel like it's dying, feel lost. There can be a sense of devastation. So it's important for the facilitator to not react to any of this phenomena. Your ability to really hold space is the mirror for people, and just allowing this phenomena to unfold. And so people will just naturally pass this stage, to the degree that they're willing to experience whatever it takes to find the truth. To the degree that they're willing to just experience whatever is coming up. So they want to find out who they are, and they're willing to face whatever is in the unconscious. And sometimes people will fall into, almost like a spiritual bypassing at this stage. So sometimes people they'll just hang out in that peaceful witnessing stage rather than facing whatever is wanting to come up in the unconscious. So, if there's a way to point that out to people, to show that that's happening, and again, this is really, the art of each individual sort of tapping into their own ability to convey the truth to others. So in this state, we allow people to be tired and confused. When they no longer resist that tiredness, they no longer resist that confusion, and they start to inquire, who is aware of that self-structure that is tired and confused. This is when that flip will happen. There can also be, we've had at retreats where, at this point it can be, the ego is going through this die before you die kind of experience. And, it's important that we screen for psychological, like real psychological issues before the retreat. Schizophrenia and things like that are usually sort of contraindications for doing this type of work. And sometimes people, with these undiagnosed psychological issues can slip through the cracks. So it's at this stage where psychological crises may arise. It doesn't happen very often, but different things can unfold, and we've had them unfold at our retreats. So there can sometimes be a dissociation that happens. And dissociation is when there's some part of the unconscious, a big pattern or big part of the unconscious kind of running in the shadows, and that part will come online. So it's just something to know that this can happen, and when this happens, it's like a different person can almost show up in front of you. So sometimes, that whatever that is, that part that's running in the unconscious, it could be like a little childlike part that has been repressed, and then suddenly that child comes online, and it's like you're dealing with a little kid, or there can be archetypal aspects of one's being, other aspects of the psyche that can come online, and suddenly you could have, someone who's playing out an archetype, or there can be aspects of the personality that have been repressed, and so somebody might be a very gentle, personality, and then suddenly this really angry or wild, being will show up, and there's this kind of flip that happens, and again, we just allow everything to unfold if it's happening. If it's like that saying, what you resist persists. So as a facilitator, we never resist what's actually happening in the moment. We allow whatever is coming up to come up. And my experiences, with these sorts of things, they will play themselves out. And they are an opportunity for that individual to see and begin to integrate that part of the unconscious that was pushed away for so long. So it can be quite dramatic sometimes when it happens, and sometimes, as a facilitator, we may feel the impulse to check in with that person's partner as well, the person who's witnessing that. Just make sure that they're okay, that they're just witnessing and allowing whatever's unfolding. So all sorts of things can happen at this level, and there can be false awakenings as well. It's a strange phenomena that happens at the retreats, where sometimes people will, like the mind will be so desperate to have an awakening that the mind will manufacture an awakening. So we've had these fake awakenings happen, where people, whatever the mind thinks awakening should look like, it's like it'll start to enact it and play it out. And we've literally had to take people aside sometimes and say, what you just went through is not actually an awakening. It's just, the mind is creating this facsimile. And so anything can happen. It's fascinating. Once, as soon as I think I've seen everything, then something new will come up at one of these retreats. So, when these sort of false awakenings happen, one way or one little trick that this actually comes from Charles Berner, and a lot of the other facilitators, the Enlightenment intensive facilitators, will use this trick as well. So if someone is sort of caught in saying, I'm awake, I'm awareness, but it's clear that they're not, like it's the mind. then you can say something like, are you satisfied with that? Are you satisfied with that answer, or with what you've just said? And quite often that'll sort of disarm the mind, and they'll recognize, like, no, okay, this isn't, I don't feel complete. I don't feel like this is the real deal. That this is just the mind playing something out. So yeah, so after this sort of so this fifth stage that I've been speaking about is this energetic unfolding, where there's a real clearing that can happen, a real dismantling that happens, and then the next stage after that is the actual awakening. So there's this direct knowing of who you are. And so in this stage, there are two things happening. There's the direct knowing of who you are, just the absolute truth. And then there's the experience and phenomena around that. And it's important to distinguish between the two. So for some people, what that awakening looks like is it's very gentle. There's not a lot of phenomena, whereas for other people, there's a lot of fireworks. There's a lot happening, a lot to see, and for some people, there can be laughing, crying, screaming, ecstasy. There can be incredulity, or the sense of just getting the cosmic joke, this laughing and laughing, or or understanding the dreamlike nature of reality, understanding the craziness of being identified with this dream character. Yeah, for some people it can be dramatic and it's very vocal. For others, there can be energetic movements. So at the moment, and this is something Charles Berner talked about, it's a fascinating topic, which something we could explore for longer at some point. But with every awakening, there is an energetic unfolding as well. So the Kundalini, or the evolutionary intelligence within us, will move to some degree when there is an awakening, and this is what there can be dramatic visual changes when you're watching someone, when that energy awakens and comes online, and this is really, it's unmistakable when it's happening. Somehow it's like the truth in you recognizes the truth in another. The true self recognizes the true self. So when an energetic unfolding happens, sometimes it's very subtle and people don't report anything. But for others, there can be energetic movements, even shaking, a lot of shaking for some people. And if this starts to happen, I've had people where it actually looks like a seizure almost, where they're shaking with this energy. And if this starts to happen, fear can come up, the mind can come back. So it's important to just reassure people if that is happening, and if there's a worry about it, just allow that to unfold. It will eventually settle down, that energy will integrate eventually. So just, if someone is experiencing this and the mind comes back and the fear is there, just reassuring them that this is just part of the process. This is just part of the phenomena unfolding. And when they're in this space, it's, just pointing them to who is present, who they are. the awareness that is here experiencing this phenomena is who they are, and the phenomena is just arising and passing away. So at this point, it's important to really, this is an important stage for the facilitator to just point directly to someone's true nature. So if they are, they're getting the cosmic joke, you can just be with them with that, and pointing to the truth, of how we've gotten hooked, or how, whatever's coming up, but just reaffirming the truth to them of who they are, and you can laugh with them at that cosmic joke, and the mind, sometimes people, there can just be a small opening, a small awakening, and then the mind will come right back. So at this point, what I like to do sometimes is, when you see the mind coming back, or you see some phenomena unfolding, in the body, some energetic movement, just who is aware of the mind, and who is aware of the mind and body, and keep bringing the participant back, or keep waking them up to the truth. And it's at this point we want to really make it clear that the mind has this tendency to keep interrupting, or even in the midst of an awakening, the mind will be looking for something, or trying to define what's happening in some way. And and as soon as the mind is commentating, or trying to take ownership of the experience, then that energy will shift again. So you may see someone becoming very present and alive and lit up, and then it's like the mind comes back, and then you see the eyes will start to move from the mind. You see them starting to think or to search again, and so there can be this ping pong kind of back and forth, I've got it, I've lost it kind of game happening. And so our job is to stabilize someone in the truth of who they are. So, and really, for me, it's about coming to a place where they're no longer seeking with the mind. If you can get someone to truly recognize that, they can't do it with the mind, and to gradually, let go of that momentum of the mind, to be able to rest in presence. And so the step 6, or stage 6, where the actual awakening happens, is it's followed by stage 7, which is this sort of there's a sort of afterglow stage where the person is radiating as their true self. They're learning to present to another as that true self. So sometimes after an awakening, sometimes I'll ask someone, when they've had an awakening, do you want to continue with your partner? Do you want to continue with the dyads? Do you want to continue, to present to your partner from that place of being your true self? Or do you just want to sit with yourself? Do you want to just be? Because at this point, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to search for. It's just about being. But for some people, the most natural thing seems to be to want to share it with others, to present the truth of who they are to others. And for others, the most natural thing seems to be to just be, be almost in a meditation. So I never tell people, they should do one or the other. There's a natural impulse sometimes to just be on one's own, to sit with the truth. When someone's really getting it, to allow that to deepen. So at that point, people can continue the dyads, or they can just be, just sit on their own. And so this step 7 or stage 7, this afterglow, sort of place is, it's a great opportunity to examine the tricks of the mind. Here is where we really want to stabilize people, really get them to understand the delusion of the mind, which is that it has anything to do in this process of finding out the truth of who you are. So if we can sort of stabilize people in this this sort of afterglow, then really, if they get it, then it's the end of seeking. It's the end of seeking. But quite often the mind, will come back. If someone has a really big awakening, they can have this opening, and it can last for days or weeks. But if it's more like a glimpse, then sometimes this is when we can really work with the mind to recognize that fundamental delusion of the mind, which it always wants to mediate the experience in some way. So yeah. So yeah, I guess so. Those are the stages, and I think at this point, first of all, are there any questions about any of that? Any questions that came up as I was going through all of that? Yeah, Dominic.
Yeah, just that last thing that you said in stage 7.
Mm-hmm.
You say if it was just a glimpse, we may want to help them stabilize.
Mm-hmm.
So how would we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Would we start to talk about just being a character, or
Mm-hmm.
something
Yeah,
subtler?
there's different ways. Sometimes I'll do it differently with different people, and sometimes just explaining to someone, what just happened. I'll just say, this is what just happened. Your mind kind of dropped away. That you became present. You knew who you were in that moment, but now you're searching again. Now there's this seeking that's happening in the mind. This worry that you're going to lose something, or have to hold this, or so the mind has come back, and making it clear that the mind doesn't have to look for the truth of who you are in that moment. And I'll do it in different ways. Like sometimes just by saying something like, I'll say something like, is the mind active now? Is the mind thinking, or is the mind searching? And quite often the person will be like, oh yeah, the mind is busy again. I was getting hooked into the mind, and sometimes that's all it takes, is just recognizing, like, oh yeah, the mind is active again, and then it can be dropped. And it's really, there's no hard and fast way of doing it. To me, it's a very intuitive thing. So sometimes I'll just talk to people and just tell them the truth of what is happening, what just unfolded, and let them know, like, you just got snagged by your mind again. You're believing that thought. What thought is coming up? If you're believing that thought, like I have to hold this experience, you know, then yeah, just making it conscious. So I think it's really just reflecting back whatever is coming up for someone.
That's great. Thanks.
Hmm.
Can I just jump in real quick? Because I have a logistics thing going on in the background.
Sure.
I have a waiting room set up, but somehow they're magically jumping into the room. So I don't know if people are trying to help to let people in through the waiting room. But I keep bumping them back into the waiting room. So if there's anybody who's actually in here that's not part of the training, if you don't mind, just I'm going to put you in a waiting room for about an hour, and then we're going to start the dyads. And if you guys see somebody in the waiting room, don't worry. I'm communicating with the people in the waiting room. So yeah. Anyway, somehow they just magically got admitted. Okay, thanks you
Okay.
guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Diana. Yeah. Hi, Bill. Yeah, hi, Bill.
Hey, Dan, I really appreciate this handout that you sent ahead of this meeting, and it's very helpful to read your own experience of the learning curve that comes online in facilitating,
Hmm.
and also to recognize that, yeah, okay, that also happened to me, and it's normal. And I like this outline of these stages and the different ideas that are presented, because each case is going to be different. Each session is going to be different, and it is so intuitive that in how one responds. And I found that if I just really stay as presence and awareness in the whole experience, then what's to be said or how to be helpful is just revealed in that open space. And I wanted to ask you, because this happened a few times for me when I was doing sessions at the last retreat and then the last practice, where where th there was a there was a real there was an opportunity to work with someone that was glimpsing, had several glimpsing moments in the mind, just as you just said. This just kept on coming back and wanting to co-opt that experience. And what I found myself doing was I would recognize that, okay, that was a glimpse, and then I would just invite them to stay right there, just stay right in that space, and let's just pause for a moment,
Hmm.
and and then let's switch, and just to allow that moment to be established without sometimes just not even working with it again, just letting them move the the into the because by then they may have been 7 or 10 minutes, and it's time to switch, but also to stay rested and established in that full glimpse experience. So
Hmm.
anyway, that's what I've noticed like 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
in the last two events.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Thanks, Bill. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for this. This is amazing. I love it each time. And just as you said in your handout, this is as much for us as it is for anyone that we're supporting.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's an amazing insight that you just shared. So yeah, to me, like there is a point, especially when people are getting that glimpse where it's like yeah they can just be very still sometimes, and it's like there my intuition is to just let it be, like let them be in that presence, and you can see in their eyes, they're completely present. They're just there, and there's nothing to do. It's just being, and it's like they're recognizing, there's a deepening of that just being, and there's a recognition that happens that, there's nothing to do in that moment. And to me, that is it, like that. And it sometimes, yeah, it can go on for a while for someone. And when that's happening, I don't interrupt the process, just allow it to deepen. And yeah, and it seems like there's just it's like the stillness, or the presence is just inviting them in, or it's coming forth, or however you want to say it. But there's like a palpable something that just, it's like almost a sacredness in that stillness that we just allow to unfold. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Jeff.
Hello. I have more of a request, and I'm wondering if it's possible if we could at some point have access to a document with a list of the most effective pointers.
Yes, and I have that. It's all ready to go. So I will share that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to be distilling all these notes from this session, just like the last one. And yeah, I have like the top 10 pointers that I use all the time, and yeah, I will share that for sure. Yeah, and I'm not sure how far we're going to get today. I have a few more things. I actually was going to go through that list of pointers. I do want to. I'm going to invite Lila to share in a minute, shortly as well. But I'll go to Leah. Yeah, hi Leah.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Actually, I also had a question about pointers. I was wondering if it should only be in a question form, like, when we get to that stage, in the deeper insight stage where we see there's an opening and there's an opportunity to encourage the inquiry and say, okay, who is, witnessing this, who is remembering, who is smiling, and so on.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of way to do like the pointers wrong, so to say? Because you mentioned at some point that if they're tired, exhausted, confused, kind of to let it be and let it unfold. Is there any benefit into reassuring, as in saying things like it's okay to be tired, or it's okay to feel confused, or is it too controlling? That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. There's little tricks that I use sometimes. So like in that particular example, if somebody's tired, I might ask something like, who's aware of that character that's tired? Who's aware of that character? Is that you? Are you tired? Or is that the character that's tired? And just little things like that, and just throw them out there, and you'll find your own way with it, and you'll find things that just work. So yeah, I think for me, it really, if it's coming from your authentic being, like you can really see through their character. You see the essence of who they are, and there's just a natural impulse to, it's like the right thing will just come out at the right time. And for some people it's easy, and others, it isn't as online, or it's something that can just develop over time. So
That's great. Thank you.
thank you. Michael.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. Hi. So as you're going through the stages, I'm evaluating my own experience with the awakening process, we could call it, I suppose. And I've had glimpses. I'm looking at it going, well, I don't think I've had the awakening. I can routinely generate the glimpse, but I haven't had the flip. And so my character is seeking the flip. This is in my space a bit. I still feel competent to guide because I know this place. But I haven't had the flip.
Mhm.
So that's what I want to put out in the room. So that's here in my space. So I want in the character. So that's what I'm experiencing. I wanted to be clear about that and make sure that you felt okay about me facilitating.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and yeah, just for your own insight into yourself. That's amazing. Yeah, so why don't you and I can work one-on-one. I'd like to follow up on that with you
Yeah.
afterwards, and yeah, that'd be amazing. And with facilitating, like it's amazing. So like just facilitating the technique, like just getting people doing the technique is a powerful thing. So, the pointing and all of this, like there's a facilitator that I know of that, he's been doing this for years, and he himself hasn't had the flip as well. And yet he was the first one that I went to, and he facilitated my first awakening as well. So I would say, first of all, it ultimately doesn't matter, because the technique works. The technique, but at the same time, we want to get that, we want to optimize as well.
Yeah.
And so if we can, yeah, so let's connect, in the weeks ahead, and
Oh, I
together.
thank you very much, Dan. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to hand it over to Lilla for a little bit. So Lilla has yeah, just her own unique way of facilitating. As everyone will cultivate, she just has her own insights, and yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Lilla.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me into this facilitator training and to share. It's been wonderful listening to you speak and summarize everything so clearly. So it's amazing to have that skill. I'm just going to tell you how I approach the self-inquiry retreats or sessions, and what happens when I am with someone. And I trust that it resonates with you, and might be help. So when I enter the room, first of all, I assess. I take time to see where the person is at, and listen. So listening is very important to me, because that kind of tells me if the person is really just at the beginning of, adventuring into this process, or they already know that they are aware, or they might be sitting in silence, not much coming up. So assessing where the person is at is number one for me. And then secondly, usually I close my eyes and I actually just put myself into that person's shoes. Why? Just from my own direct experience, I know that is me. That is the self, appearing as those characters in the room. So I am that universal actor in there, appearing as the characters, the seeker, and the facilitator. And I'd love to share with you just a very tiny little paragraph from a book that I came across. And if I could say something to those characters in the room, it would be this, but I won't do it. But this is so profound, and it actually very relevant to self-inquiry. And it says, just sit there right now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your separation from God is the hardest work in the world. And that is exactly what's happening in that room. So when there is someone, participants, who come and do this self-inquiry, they consider themselves to be this separate self, this false self, and they consider themselves to be less than whole, and believe that they need guidance to find the treasure they are sitting on. And that's who we were as well. This is true for all of us. We forget our true nature. So when I enter the room where those people are, I already understand what's happening in that room. And for me, that means coming from the truth, the ultimate truth, to see everything clearly, what's really appearing in that room. I understand there is this one substance, aware presence, and that's me, but that is found in that room. So I am the one playing hide and seek. It is this one substance, aware presence, playing hide and seek. And I am this character, I'm the characters, and I am the facilitator. The only difference is that I know that I am playing the role. The characters in that room that appear to be, they are looking for themselves. They're looking for the truth of who they are. So it is basically the self in there, me. And this way I see the truth, and I understand when there's confusion of the mind or frustration of the mind that's arising in there. And there is this, I used to see it as it belongs to the person, but I kind of nixed that. And instead of saying it's that frustration is arising in him or her, I see it as frustration arising. This is for me as well as much it is for who is appearing in the room. So if I look at it in the truth, then I can navigate the guidance even better. This is me. What would help me in this moment to see clearly, to get more clarity about who I am? What nudging would help me? Like if you go to your friends at night and you're throwing rocks at their window to wake them up, in the big picture, it doesn't matter which rock will wake them up. So it's the same with you when you're facilitating and you're prompting. The prompting that is pointing at from which the pointing is coming from. It's the same source. So what is it that I would find in this moment helpful? So for me to realize my true nature. And sometimes there's an opening for it. Sometimes there isn't opening for it. That's how you gauge where the person is at. What I have found really helpful is if somebody is really in the story, then I might interrupt, might not, it depends. And I do it very gently. It's like, okay, I'd like to help you here, if the story is really like just going off, and it's like, let's just come back to here, because this is all there is, just here. and then I asked them, what are you aware of in the room, or what's most real for you right now? And even if they say it's all these thoughts coming in, it actually created this space. So and I speak from experience as well, you know, being where I am exactly here is what helps with being present and awake. So it's really good to ground myself in the truth so I can actually help with the process and know that we want to find the way back into that room. That's just also when the mind is very busy and it's really going off track. But on the other hand, sometimes there is no opening, and it's awesome just to let the person speak. And this is lifelong conditioning. So eventually, as Dan said, the technique will do what it's meant to do. You know, prompting, no prompting. That if someone does the technique, eventually the mind, this fan will slow down. And sometimes 2 hours is, of course, might not be enough for it, but we don't know where the person is at, who's entering the room, right? And that is still just the self playing this hide and seek. So I also understand that awakening happens on its own time. You know, I used to be so eager to, you know, awaken people. I was one of those people like, oh my God, I want to awaken everyone. And then kind of forgetting already that, you know, there is nobody to awaken because it's only the self appearing as all these characters. So we cannot make awakening happen because it happens on its own time. So, you know, I had to learn not to take it personally because it's not personal. There is no person. But the guidance, the pointing, when it comes from the truth of who you are, you're pointing from which, you know, you're pointing at the truth. You always speak. I'm sorry, Dan, I don't know if you mentioned this, but probably you did. You know, I always, and everyone speak to the true self. You're speaking to yourself in that room, because behind the illusion of being Sarah and Tom and all these characters, self-realization already is. Awakeness already is. So when you wake up, you're like, I've always been this. It's always me. This is me. I've always been me. That's always there. So gotta see beyond the illusion of this game of self-inquiry and the game that is unfolding. So this character that we all play is just a temporal role. And in that room, we can see that as well. And it doesn't exist apart from the universal actor, which is the self, which is you. So that's how I approach it. And that had changed with time from the beginning to now. And there's a lightness about it. It's like, as Dan said, it doesn't matter if there's awakening or if no awakening, in a sense of like, there's no one to awaken. It's just you, the self, you know, playing the game. And it is just a spontaneous falling away of this illusory separate self. It happens spontaneously. And I trust that there will be witnessing to that, and yeah, just allow everything to unfold as it's meant to. There are no mistakes. There's nothing that could be any different as it is in that room. And be there as you. Just come from the truth of who you are and understand what's really unfolding in awareness in that room.
Thank you. Thanks, Lila. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love, you know, what you said. I'll emphasize that point of, you know, always speaking to the true self. You know, when we're speaking to a participant, we're speaking to their true self. So, you know, so like when we put a question out there, like who's aware of that, you know, we call it an I am retreat, because the answer that we want is always I am, you know, but we want it to be the real I am, you know. So it's that I am that we're speaking to, and just on a practical level, when we're interacting with a participant, we don't call them by their name, like their regular name. So I wouldn't say, you know, so Lila, you know, tell me who you are, or, you know, we're not speaking to the character. We're always speaking to the true self. It's just something to recognize, and generally, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but you know, when we're you know, usually we're hovering in the background in the retreat, and so sometimes we can just say, excuse me, you know, or gently sort of come into the space with our voice, but we don't refer to the person. We don't say, you know, hey George, you know, because that then the character will respond, you know. So we want to yeah, always be pointing, always, you know. The crazy thing about this is, like, as long as we just stay with the truth, you know, knowing who we are, then we know who the other being is, and then whatever's going to flow will flow correctly from that insight and that knowing of who we are. And you know, it's always the ego that wants something other than what is. So it, you know, the ego is nothing but resistance to what is. And you know, I think, as Bill mentioned, I love, you know, like for our own development, this is such an amazing process to observe what's coming up within ourselves as we're engaged in this facilitating. So, you know, for me, over the years, it's been fascinating to watch my own tendency to label things, you know, as they're happening, as being good or bad. You know, as soon as there's any part of the Dan character that's saying this is good or this is bad, you know, whatever's unfolding in that space, you know, then it's like, I know that there's a, you know, part of that filter is active. And so it's a great way to see, you know, if we're labeling or judging anything as good or bad or right or wrong, or trying to make anything in particular happen, then we can see where the, you know, the operations of our own self-structure are still in play. So yeah, I loved what Lila said. It really is, you know, there's a grace, or a, you know, it's just happening. Awakening is just happening. Somehow people have showed up here at these events, and we don't make anything happen. You know, it's just happening. Anyone who would be making something happen is always the character trying to do something. So yeah, so your own purification is accelerated in this process. You know, even after an awakening, you know, there's this ongoing purification of samskaras, and this ongoing development process that's happening. So, you know, I never assume anything. I never assume that I'm beyond anything, or that, you know, the Dan character can't, you know, come out and do something stupid at any point. So it's an ongoing development process. Yeah, and you're noticing your own emotions. You know, sometimes our own emotions will come up in this process. you know, it's like I've had people at retreats, and it's like my little character is like rooting for the person, you know, or not for the person, but for the awakening from the person, you know. But I notice that, and as soon as that's in play, then, you know, there's a preference again. You know, it's the character trying to do something, or you know, it has an agenda. It wants, you know, there's this delusion that there, you know, I am making something happen, or I'm going to awaken so and so, and that's not the case. You know, that's part of our own purification, our own process to recognize that. You know, when emotions come up, the emotions, and I've talked about this at different times, but a great way to see this process within ourselves is to understand if an emotion is coming up, there's always a belief that is entangled in that emotion. And so whatever the belief is, if I can catch the thought that is related to that emotion, if I can catch that belief, then the emotion transmutes from an emotion to just pure feeling, just pure aliveness. Yeah, so part of this process for us is transmuting emotions into just pure presence, pure aliveness. Tayama, did you want to say something? Or you? Oh, you. Okay. I thought that was a hand up there. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna. We've got a few minutes left. So we're gonna break at 1:45. Let the participants come in and give us a little break there. I'm just going to go through the last few minutes here some pointing examples. As I mentioned to Jeff, this will all be available in a handout as well. Yeah, so at the beginning of the process, you know, like today might be a good example. So we're probably today, we won't have many people who are hitting the later stages in this practice. But when people are really starting to work with the technique, you know, sometimes things are coming up, and you know, there isn't a great deal of self-reflection happening. Like the answers might be very brief. There might not be a lot of connection happening for people. So one of the little tricks that I use is to, you know, if something is coming up for someone, and just like the example I spoke about with emotions, if you can get people to identify, you know, if something's coming up, like I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling frustration, you know, sometimes people will just be in this space where they're just sitting with their stuff, but they're kind of locked up, you know, so I get them to identify where that is in the body. So if somebody is saying, I'm just feeling mad, I'm feeling angry, you know, so where does that anger live in the body? Where is that frustration in the body? And if you can start to, you know, make that connection, help people to make that connection between their thoughts and that emotion and feeling it on a somatic level. You know, is it moving in the body? Is it you know, where is that location? Is it changing through time? All of that. And that can start to take them deeper, you know, beyond just the thought about it, and making it an embodied experience. And that can help to, you know, just help things unfold, and sometimes help unstick people in their process. You know, another one, you know, the use of the word I, me, or mine. We usually don't start to really enforce those words at the beginning, but as time goes on, We might want to just, if somebody says, uses the word I in some context, you can just point it out. If it seems like they're just using the word I sort of unconsciously, you can just gently ask, who is that I that you just referred to? Who is that? Tell us who you are, and that's it. And just start to make that use of I, me, and mine more conscious. We do mention it at the beginning, but quite often it just is. People will just fall into the old patterns and use the word unconsciously. Another one, sometimes, usually this is in the later stages where people will start to observe the phenomena of their mind. So they'll instead of just being in the thoughts and identified with the thoughts, they'll start to talk about the mind, so as if they're separate from it. And so this is a perfect opportunity to work with people. So you can say, who is that that's aware of the mind? Who's aware of the mind? And who are you? Are you the mind? Are you the awareness of the mind? Are you aware of the witness? Who's aware of the witness of the mind? And you can start to really confuse people, and you start to unravel this whole thing, and eventually, we want people to come to a don't know mind. They really realize they don't know who the hell they are. They don't know what the mind is. They come to a place like, I don't know. Like, if people really get truly honest, they come to this place where I don't know anymore. I thought I did, but I really have no freaking clue now who I am. And that's perfect. That's where we want to get people to. So, and if they can allow that don't know mind, without reactivating it, without trying to know, you can even let people know, this is the space where we just want to hang out, just observe, do the technique in this space of not knowing, just reporting the phenomena as it's coming up, and just allow that don't know mind to be there. Another one, so if people are, really they're not engaging with the technique, they're just kind of not getting it, they're really kind of stuck, they're not in that witnessing place of nothing happening, but it's like the mind just kind of bewildered by the whole process. Sometimes, you get a sense that sometimes people are almost ready to just take off and drop it and walk away. And I find if people are at that point and they're not engaging with it, sometimes I'll ask, what is the most real thing for you in this moment? What's the most real thing coming up in this moment? And so rather than reporting the phenomena of the mind, or as what's coming up as a result of the inquiry, they might not even be, there might not be much inquiry happening at all at the beginning. So just being real, just being real, like, saying, I'm confused, I don't know what's going on, I feel like a failure, whatever. It can start to be, open up whatever's going on in the self structure and make it visible to them. So it's like a way to see what's in play in the present moment. And yeah, I think I mentioned sometimes people will throw things out there where, it's like, they'll deliver some ultimate sort of bit of knowledge about who they are or the universe, something big and juicy and cosmic, and you can just say something like, are you satisfied with that? Because quite often, it's like the mind will be holding on to some sort of knowing, and when you say, are you satisfied with that? Quite often the answer will be no, I'm not. That was just a concept or whatever. So, and I think the only other thing, I'll talk a little bit. So sometimes when you're in a room, you'll get a direct question from someone about the technique as well. So it doesn't happen too often, but sometimes someone will just sort of interrupt their dyad and pose a question to a facilitator. They might ask you directly about the technique. They might say, I'm not understanding, I feel like I'm stuck, can you help me? So if that happens, usually, I find it's helpful to sort of point them towards the two main parts of the technique. If you're going to explain the technique to people, we always want to refer to the two parts of the technique. So there's the intending to directly experience part of the technique. So you can ask them, are you, what are you doing? When you intend to directly experience who you are, what's happening there? Are you actually taking time to directly experience? And just see what their answer is. See what they're doing. You can, if they don't, quite often won't know how to do that. They won't know how to do that. Nobody at the beginning does. So get them to get a sense of that I amness or beingness. If the mind is trying to do something, just point out that that's the mind trying to do it, and explain what direct means. Direct is not via the mind. So how do you directly experience? There's no how to, because it's direct. So, and then the second part is we want to just report any phenomena that's coming up as a result of doing that inquiry. And so sometimes people will just report, what they'll go into some sort of free association, or they'll do, some sort of scan of their body and reporting all kinds of stuff. And so we don't want to just allow that to go on forever. At some point, we really want to stress that, we just report what is coming up as a result of the inquiry itself. So, you did the inquiry, you inquired, you had this intention to directly experience your true nature. And as a result of that, what has moved in the mind and body? What is that brought up? So it's a subtle distinction, but it's something that, people can fall into these patterns of just repeating and reporting mundane phenomena. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So yeah, we've got 15 minutes, and yeah. So the one thing I will say. So if you can, I think what we're going to do is Lila and I will be communicating with you guys through chat when we're in the dyads. So just be aware of that. If we're in the room, just keep your chat window open, and we may probably quite often won't have anything to say, but if we do have something, rather than communicating it, in the dyad we can't do that. So just keep that chat window open, and we'll communicate that way. So, yeah. So thank you. We'll see you in 15 minutes. Yeah. Sheila, did you have a question?
Yeah, hey everyone, just a quick question. Especially today, we're really focusing on helping them work with the technique and correcting the technique. So if we notice someone, for example, not maintaining eye contact, or somebody's not being a neutral witness, do we interrupt? Would you suggest interrupting while the exchange is happening, or wait until that person is done with their inquiry and do that correction in between?
Yeah, I would interrupt it, just gently, right at the time, as soon as you catch it. If somebody, if their camera is askew, or somebody's not making eye contact, or and the same with the witness, if the witness is nodding or responding in some way, then I would just catch it right in that moment. I think it's always best to catch it in the moment. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Janine, are you still here?
Yes.
Hi, can you turn your video on so I can see you?
Yeah.
Okay, are you wanting to have it as a background, or are you wanting to have it as your profile picture?
As a background, so when I stop video, you'll see the symbol instead of
Okay,
just.
so that's profile picture, so that's not a background, so that's
Oh.
profile picture. So
Okay.
why don't you go into hide self view, and then I'll see
Okay.
if you,
Let's see. Oh, wait, where am I? Where am I? Where am I?
did you hide yourself view?
I did. And where am I?
Hang on, let me go into participants. I want to go make a quick coffee, but let me just see. Okay.
Lost myself again.
Yeah, so you haven't, it's still a green J, so you haven't actually changed your profile picture.
I'm wondering, at one point I had a paid Zoom account and things like this were easy and they worked.
You
Now
don't have a paid Zoom account?
I don't have it anymore. I just have a free Zoom account, so I'm wondering if that's impacting my ability to do this.
Well, I don't know, because I know a few other people don't have a paid account. Let me just go look at, yeah, like Zoo doesn't have a paid account. She managed to change her profile.
So where am
I mean, the
still-
thing is you're a green J, so it's not really a big deal. What we
Okay.
didn't want is it to be a picture or a face.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so you would, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you can.
In the email Dan sent a couple days ago, he actually had instructions, and he had a link, and then he said go on that link, and in that link there's like settings, profile, and then you can change your profile picture from there. So it's only thanks to those instructions I was able to do it.
Yeah, I just re-enter those in the chat. I copied and pasted Dan's instructions. So basically you have to click on that link that I sent you. Thanks, Laya. And how do you say your name, Laya?
Leah.
Leah. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you. Tayama, while I'm off mute, I have a question.
Yes.
I unfortunately missed the first few minutes of the meeting. Lots of computer issues. I borrowed somebody else's laptop. It's a miracle I'm here. But anyways, I missed the instruction regarding